welcome everybody. Got a very special guest with me today, somebody who represented New Zealand 74 times between 1992 and 2000. And he is now one of the leading lights when it comes to the world of commentary, the one and only Simon Doull. Dooley, a very warm welcome to you.
So thanks very much, mate. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy in demand all around the world, so much appreciated.
No, all good.
You were recently in Pakistan, Dooley. How did that trip go?
It was fantastic, really. Obviously, I was there for a short time just after Christmas with the New Zealand Test Series, but I hadn't been back since the PSL got cancelled through COVID. Was that 2 years ago? So it was nice to be back and nice to sort of get a full PSL season in. We started up in Multan and had a very nice, welcoming sort of week and a half in Multan, to be honest with you. The cricket was great, but the off-course or the off-field stuff and the golf course was even better, which was much to my liking.
The PSL itself as a tournament, do you think the quality is getting better? Is it a bit stagnated?
It's an interesting one. I think with all the leagues that are going on around the world now, it's a really tough one. So, we've got the ILT20 and the South African one just started right before the PSL. So I think timing-wise, it's probably pretty good because you can go to either one of those two, then to PSL and then on to the IPL if you are, one of the big names. It's going to come down to what players will do in the next 2-3 years, how much cricket they want to play leading into into IPL, particularly the big players. But I certainly don't think it's gone backwards. That is for sure. There's talk of room for expansion. Is there room for 2 more teams in Pakistan in the PSL? Well, that's a possibility. But what you don't want to do is dilute the quality of overseas talent as well when you're doing that. And I think that's something the Big Bash has got wrong. They've shortened the tournament this year, but they lengthened it for year upon year, and didn't get the big name international stars down there for long enough. And I think that was a mistake they made. So you just need to be very careful. But in answer to your question, I don't think it's gone backwards. Has it improved a huge amount? I think the quality of some of the local players has, but the overseas talent is probably not quite where they would like it to be.
That leads into nicely into my next question, really. What areas of improvement would you like to see in the Pakistan Super League?
Look, I think the boundaries are a little bit small in a couple of the grounds. So improvement-wise, I mean, I don't know whether that's an improvement to make as far as the ground staff are concerned, or whether that's just the PSL ruling. I don't know. But you've got to bring the spinners back into play. Look, the fast bowlers are great. There's so many talented quick bowlers on show. I just wonder whether the spinners outside of a couple this year had a great tournament. And I wonder sometimes whether the boundaries are just brought in a little bit too far. We played in some huge grounds. I mean, a couple of, Lahore was massive, and yet the boundaries were so far in, and Multan was a bit the same. The boundaries are a good size, yet they just brought them in a little bit too far. So Pindi, very similar. I'd like to see them just lengthen those out a little bit. Make sure the spinners are really coming into play. Outside of that, I don't, I'm not a massive one for law changes and things inside of, your local domestic tournaments. I think if they are good for the game, I have no problem with it. But the quality of cricket is still there. The fact that they continue to produce quick bowlers and we just seen Zaman Khan and Ihsanullah on show in the recent series. Now, that didn't obviously go Pakistan's way, but they are still producing those type of cricketers. Saeem Ayub coming through the tournament. Mohammad Harris having a decent time of it. Abdullah Shafiq coming back into some form in T20 cricket. So there are opportunities for guys to either re-emerge or emerge completely as a young player. So I wouldn't want to see too many changes.
You and Babar Azam best of friends now?
We're okay. Yeah, we're okay. Look, I mean, they're just opinions. And look, I know people of Pakistan and around the world are passionate about cricket. And it's a bit like saying something against Kohli in India and you're going to cop it. That's just life, isn't it? It's like saying, I've had to go at Kane Williamson's T20 career on more than one occasion in New Zealand, and I cop it from people back home. But it's just an opinion, and it's as long as there's substance to it, and I always find that as long as I've got substance and a reason for it, that will always be okay, and I'll always be okay with it. And I caught up with Bubba, and I didn't ask for it to be filmed, but I guess people will take whatever they will from it. I just said to him, I said, listen, mate, I believe you are the best player in this country. I believe you should be bullying this tournament. and you should be owning these bowlers. And I think you, at times, are afraid to get out, and you shouldn't ever be afraid to get out. And I said, I think when in some cases in your innings, that shows. And that's, that was kind of the gist of my whole sort of chat, really. It's, and you get people say, oh, I had someone message me yesterday or something, Quinton de Kock slowed down, getting to his 100. I said, did they win? In simple cases, if you're chasing and you're pacing an innings and you get home and you win, there's never going to be an issue with it. I'll never have a problem with it. But when you're setting and you don't know what is a good score, I think you've just, and particularly at that stage in that game, there was so many resources waiting in the wings that you just got to keep going. And that was, that was the whole sort of crux of the comment. And it gets, at times they get blown out of proportion, but look, I'll never ever hide behind anything I say. I said it at the time, I was stuck by it, and I have no issue that I said it.
Did Babar agree with what you were saying to him, Julie?
Yeah, he was actually very good. He said, I felt they bowled better. And I said, look, I'll give you that. I think they bowled better at the time. But he said, I still felt that you just went into your shell a little bit. And you weren't quite as aggressive as you were in the first part of it. And he said, Darren's actually talked to me about that. So Darren Sammy talked to him about it as well, the coach. And he said, yeah, we've had a conversation around the same thing. And he said, and I think what you saw, and now I'm not claiming this, but I think what you saw in the following game was he was sort of ultra aggressive in the game straight after that. So, look, I still, and I've always maintained that he is he's in the top 3-4 players in the world. He's a terrifically talented player and great to watch. And nothing I've ever said is ever personal. And I think that's the one thing. The people get personal, and it's never a personal attack on a guy. It's just a cricketing comment. And I think, and it's sometimes, and I know the language barrier is not always easy when you're commentating in the subcontinent in particular, and sometimes the humour, and not that was a humorous moment, but sometimes our humour gets lost a little bit as well. So we do have to be a bit more careful, but none of it's ever personal. But when people get personal back, I think that's when it's sort of, I think that's when it just crosses the line. And that's one thing I just don't sort of agree with, I guess, with some sides of social media.
What do you make of Babar Azam's captaincy, Dooley? I mean, it's hard enough being captain in one format for the Pakistan team, but to captain in all 3 formats is quite a challenge.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the last 3-4 years, I've said New Zealand needed another captain outside of Kane Williamson and the other formats. Now, they've gone down that road with Tim Southee taking over the Test captaincy and Kane just concentrating on the white ball stuff, which I think is good. I think it's a very, very difficult job. And it's not only difficult because you're maintaining your own form in all 3 formats, but you're also trying to encourage a lot of the same players at the same time. And I think whether it be in white ball format or in red ball format, it's nice to just have a different voice. And it's also, my issue around Kane was I just want Kane to be the best player New Zealand have ever had and ever seen. And we're starting to see a bit more of that now as well. You look at that last series at home, he was back to his best at the Test match level. Now, will that happen with Babar Azam if he decides not to captain in one format or the other? And I'm not saying he's a better captain at Test level or a better captain at one day or T20 level. That's up to him to choose and to figure out the best way forward. But I don't think, in all honesty, that it is feasible for one player to captain a top 8 nation in all 3 formats of the game moving forward. I think the toll it takes means that the retirement will be way earlier than it should be.
Mohammad, Rizwan also copped a little bit of stick from you, Dooley, in the PSL when he was during one of his innings where you said he should retire out. Is that a tactic that you want to see more of?
Yeah, look, I do. I actually do. I have no issue with the retire out thing. And, at that stage, it was just, he was really struggling. And then he went on to play incredibly good innings in the end. And that's all well and good. But at the time, I think it's something that should be looked at. And I'm not saying retire out, in the 4th, 5th, 6th over. But, if you're a player that, let's say you've got a team that's got a lot of power at 5, 6, 7, 8. And you sort of say, okay, we want these guys batting from the 12th, 13th over at the most. So your top 4 guys who are going to get you to the 12th over and have maybe 100 on the board, something like that, on a decent surface. Have 100, 110 on the board. and you're only 2 down. And then you say, okay, look, if one of you is there, you've either got to start really going for everything, from the 12th over, or we're just going to probably retire you out because we've got Tim David and we've got Kyron Pollard and we've got whoever to follow. And that's the game plan. That's how we want to do it. So I think it's something we will see. I don't think we'll see it regularly, but we will see it a little bit more often, I think, in the next little while. And what I will say is I think we'll see it more often now coming into the IPL, if I'm allowed to talk a little bit about that, with this impact player situation. And if that takes toll or if that creates a bit of a role in some of the other leagues around the world, then you might see it a little bit more often in that situation.
Let's talk about Shaheen Shah Afridi, Doull, winning captain of the PSL. Wherever he's touching is turning to goals at the moment. Even with the bat, fantastic bowler, we know that. But what do you make of him as a cricketer? And do you see him as a future captain for Pakistan?
Look, I think he's a terrific talent, incredible talent. Is he a future Pakistan captain? Possibly. He's a very emotional guy, and I think great captains don't have too much emotion. I think one of the areas possibly where Kohli was a little bit, probably found wanting a little bit, was his over emotion as a captain. And I think you've got to be a relatively calm head as a skipper. So that's one thing you probably may have to just look at a little bit if he's going to. But he's still a young man, and he's conquered so much in the cricketing world. And I know we talk about it. He's still, I don't even know, what is he, 25, 26? He's still a relatively young man in the cricketing world, so he's got a lot to learn, and he will get a lot better along the way. So is he a future captain? Absolutely, he could be. There's no issue with that, and he will learn to just temper some of that along the way as well. I think if he does become or do more captaincy.
What about the standard of commentary at the moment, Doull? You're somebody who says it how it is. It doesn't matter who's playing, credit to yourself. You'll say it how you see it. Do you think some commentators are a little bit reluctant to upset the apple cart?
Oh, look, and I get it. I understand it. Yes, some are. And I guess I think when I started, I was probably worried about my job. I was probably worried where the next job was coming from, and which side your bread's buttered on. And I think from any point of view of any job, you try not to upset your boss or upset the owners or upset the people that are in charge, but you still owe it to yourself, I think, and owe it to the game and to the punter who's watching television, in my point of view, to be honest and to be true to yourself. Are there some that could probably say more? Absolutely. Some might look at me and say I say too much, but I'm quite secure, I think, in my job, and you know what you're going to get, and the guys at the PSL, and I mean, I've had a lot of messages from guys in the Pakistan setup and in and around Pakistan cricket, sort of saying, well done. You're saying something that a lot of people have thought but have been too afraid to say for a long period of time. But I don't do it for those reasons. I do it because it's something I believe and I believe in. And as long as you do that and you're true to yourself, I can sleep pretty well at night and not worry too much about it. And if I'm not wanted next week, or if I'm not wanted for a job next year, then so be it. That's up to them. But they know when they hire me, they know what they're going to get.
I've recently seen the Pakistan-Afghanistan T20 series, Doull. Not too many positives for Pakistan, but you must have enjoyed watching Ihsanullah bowl.
Yeah, I did. I look very much so, and not too many positives, but the couple or three that did come out of it, I think, you just don't know. I guess the appreciation for, and I think Shadab said it as well, the appreciation for Babar and for Rizwan at the top of the order was there for all to see. When they're not there, it was a real struggle. The wickets weren't great. The surfaces weren't great. I will say that the last one was the best of them, and that's when Pakistan were able to show their best. The first two played right into Afghanistan's hands. But to still be able to reach 145, 150 on really docile, slow surfaces, I was most impressed with Ihsanullah and what he's got to offer. He's a really exciting talent. Everything about that action, the wrist position, the height, the effort, there's so much to love about watching it. I just hope he continues to improve I hope he improves out of this. And it's the one thing I guess that Pakistan have probably been slightly missing. You know, when Harris is injured, or when Hasnain was out injured, Naseem Shah was injured. They're just missing that backup one or two. I mean, I think Zaman Khan's got a lot to offer. We saw others throughout the PSL that I think have got plenty to offer. I still think Saim Ayoub is going to be a talent. Young kid, you know, didn't quite come to terms with the first couple of games. Improved his situation in the last game. Abdullah Shafiq, I mean, what a horror! I mean, I mentioned the Audi, the 4 rings. He was searching down the barrel of the Olympic rings there at one stage. But you know, I still think he's a decent enough player to contribute at international level at T20 cricket if required. So you don't know these situations or these things until you put these players in those positions. And you know, when you take 4 of the biggest players in Pakistan T20 cricket at the moment out in Harris and Shaheen and the 2 big guns at the top and Babar and Rizwan, it's going to leave a hole. You take the top 4 players, the best 4 players out of any team in the world, and you know, I don't know that many of them would have beaten Afghanistan on those first 2 pitches.
Finally, Doull, New Zealand are going to head to Pakistani shores very shortly. Firstly, it's great to see the likes of New Zealand back in Pakistan once again. How do you see that going?
Tough one, really tough one for New Zealand. Obviously, I think I haven't done the numbers because I'm obviously headed off to IPL, but I think there's 8 or 9 of the New Zealand side that are going to play IPL cricket rather than this tour, which is, you know, in some ways it's sad. But New Zealand board cannot pay their players enough money to deny them those contracts in big leagues around the world. And that's the one league that they allow their players to play. So, you know, much like this tour was for Pakistan and Afghanistan, it was an opportunity for other players, for players you may not have seen a lot of. Cole McConkey, we've just seen Chad Bowes make his debut against Sri Lanka. There's players coming that will, you know, that will get an opportunity to shine on the international stage. I think it's a really tough one to, you know, to go and try and beat Pakistan with an understrength side. But, you know, so I'd put Pakistan quite heavily favourites in that series. But it is an opportunity, and you just never know who can stand up and maybe who can get the job done from a New Zealand point of view.
Just on that point, Dooley, I know I said finally, but one more thing about the New Zealand players opting to play in the IPL rather than for their country. You can't hold anything against them. I mean, it's the way of the world now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I wouldn't hold anything against any player making money around the world. You know, that's my job. I travel the world and get paid to talk a little bit about something I did, you know, 25 years ago, and absolutely love it. I will never begrudge any player making money, any player going to a league around the world and playing cricket. It is the way of the world. It's what's happening a lot more often. You know, I'd love to see some Pakistan players in some more leagues around the world. I was really pleased to see Shaheen get to the Welsh Fire. He's been joined. Who's he been joined at the Welsh Fire by?
Harris Ralph.
Harris Ralph. So
yes.
There's a genuine pace. You know, there's some genuine pace in the Welsh Fire. They are, you know, they are true to their name. This time around, they will have some firepower. So that's, you know, that's really good. I'm pleased to see them getting picked up in the 100. I'd love to see more of them. I'd love to see some of them in the ILT20 next year, and let's hope that that can happen. But look, it is the way of the world at the moment. New Zealand contracts, you know, for instance, the top New Zealand men's contract is less than the top Australian women's contract. So you can see why New Zealand cricket have to let the men go and play in these competitions around the world.
Dooley, really appreciate your time. Keep rocking in that commentary box. Keep doing what you're doing, and all the best for the future.
Cheers. Appreciate it a lot. Thanks so much.